As is all too often the case in Oklahoma, Mother Nature provided one of the biggest stories of 2019, the historic May flooding in the eastern part of the state. The rain began falling on May 13th, and it kept falling and falling, and then was followed by tornadoes. The storms cost Oklahoma's economy hundreds of millions of dollars and tested the perseverance of both our citizens and leaders.
There was one morning last week where I went out to get the paper and clouds were overhead, and I may have started yelling at the clouds. My wife said, "Boy, I hope our neighbors didn't see that." I think the mayor is finally cracking under the pressure here.
G.T. Bonham did not crack. In fact, the performance of he and his team during the first large-scale weather crisis of his administration drew widespread praise.
The mayor of Tulsa has done a great job of getting everybody prepared along the Arkansas corridor to evacuate neighborhoods.
In this flood, you saw a lot of leadership from elected officials. The mayor of Tulsa, Mayor Bynum, was highly engaged. Governor Stitt was highly engaged. But to their credit, they recognize that the expertise to operate the dams lies here.
Dr. David Williams is chief of hydraulics for the Army Corps of Engineers Tulsa District, which oversees 5 locks and dams and 33 Oklahoma reservoirs. By late May, many of them were bursting at the seams, and the decision was made to release an unprecedented amount of water. At Keystone Dam, 275,000 cubic feet per second, guaranteeing flooding in downstream towns and neighborhoods.
It's heavy on the heart, of course, and the one thing where I can hang my head up high is that we were still reducing flooding downstream. While you can't protect everybody, you're still protecting some. And the impacts would have been much more significant if it weren't for the dams.
We executed our operational plan as good as anybody could have. And I am supremely confident that they made the right call at the right time.
A question often asked at that time, why not open the floodgates and begin releasing water before the rain arrives?
Let's say that the rainfall actually falls downstream from the dam, and this actually occurred the last week of May, Wednesday, May the 29th, to be precise. The rainfall was forecast that Tuesday and Wednesday to fall above the dam. It actually fell below the dam. Had we made additional releases based on that weather forecast, we would have made the downstream flooding worse. So that's why we don't operate that way.
The Meadow Valley and Town and Country neighborhoods in Sand Springs were 2 of the hardest hit areas. Statewide, more than 1,000 homes were damaged, and hundreds of their owners did not have flood insurance.
The general rule of thumb that I've been told is that recovery usually takes about a year for every day that property is in the water. And like in the Town and Country area, we're going on about a week that we had homes in the water. And so that's a recovery where you could be looking at 5 to 7 years before folks are back where they were the day before the water hit their house.
According to the Oklahoma Climatological Survey, this was Oklahoma's 3rd wettest May since record-keeping began in 1895, and 24 sites in the eastern part of the state broke their all-time rainfall records for the month. It was a recipe for disaster, and on May 23rd, a near disaster occurred when 2 barges loaded with fertilizer broke loose, traveled 27 miles down the Arkansas River, and then slammed into Lock 16 near Weber's Falls.
Well, we just experienced an unprecedented catastrophic event. Clearly the flood of record. When all those rivers come together, it creates additional flows that you might not experience above or below. So it was catastrophic in that way. About $100 million so far that I can calculate in damages.
And that was just at the port of Muskogee. To the north, the Tulsa port of Catoosa was also shut down by flooding. In fact, all water traffic along the entire McClellan-Kerr Arkansas River Navigation System, or MCARN, ceased on May 13th, costing private businesses $2 million per day in lost revenue.
Those are ripples that are going to go into the economy, I think, for years to come, whether it's what we pay at the grocery store or what we pay at the pump or what we pay when we go to Lowe's to buy that new appliance. We're going to feel it.
Another victim of the flooding, the iconic Batfish submarine in Muskogee. Responsible for sinking 3 enemy subs during a 76-hour period in 1945, the World War II ship suffered damage inside and out when floodwater swept through Memorial Park on May 23rd.
It broke loose. It was a god-awful noise, bop, and we all knew what it was. I'm freaking out on the inside, and I'm just thinking, this is about to go down the river, Weber's Falls. If this would have hit the dam.
The park's executive director, Brent Trout, is now in a race against time to privately raise $150,000 to fix and stabilize the batfish. That amount, plus additional FEMA funding, should restore the sea legs of the ship for generations to come.
We always thought we were lucky because we're on dry land, and our maintenance bill has always been very low compared to the ones that are in water. But then when you have a drastic flood that moves it and then causes it to start deteriorating, no, we're not prepared for that.
Flooding in northeastern Oklahoma was not the only weather calamity our first-term governor had to contend with. There were also the tornadoes, more than 60 of them in May, when the historical average for the month is just 23. 118 people were injured and 6 people died.
El Reno, then they just got hit with that tornado. So I was on the ground there with them, went by the shelters. But just proud of the community, the way they come together and take care of the folks that are affected, that are displaced from a home and a loss. It's just been unbelievable.
And that may be the lasting lesson from those difficult days in May and June. Oklahomans pulling together to put their lives back together.
I think a lot of the time when we have a natural disaster like a tornado, it hits really quick and then it's over and then the recovery occurs. This was drawn out over weeks, and yet people weren't feeling sorry for themselves or moping around. People just handled it every day, putting one foot in front of the other and thinking about what they could do to help their neighbors out. And so it was extraordinary to see that.
Really was. NOAA still calculating the total cost and damages for the worst flooding event in Oklahoma since 1986.